All right, today we're on the trail of a silent traveler, a microscopic parasite that has journeyed from the rural parts of the Americas to cities all across the globe, and it's hiding inside millions of people who have absolutely no idea they're even infected. It has a pretty incredible history and a really dangerous, complex relationship with us.
Well, we're talking about a tiny protozoan called Trypanosoma cruzi. It's the parasite that causes Chagas disease. See, for most people, it sets up a lifelong, totally silent infection. But for an unlucky few, decades down the line, it can lead to some truly devastating and sometimes fatal heart or digestive problems. So how did this parasite, once confined to a specific region, manage to go global? To really get that, we have to look at its journey through time.
So let's start with the parasite's journey, how it went from being a localized problem in the Americas to the worldwide public health challenge it is today. Okay, so the story kicks off back in 1909 with an absolutely brilliant Brazilian physician, Carlos Chagas. I mean, this guy achieved something almost unheard of in medicine. In one single incredible piece of research, he discovered a new pathogen, the insect that carries it, the animals that host it, and the disease it causes in humans. It's just wild. For decades, Chagas disease was seen as a disease of poverty, stuck in rural Latin America. But in our totally interconnected world, human migration has carried this silent infection far, far beyond its original borders, to North America, Europe, you name it.
So let's zoom in a bit on the organism at the very heart of this story. What exactly is this parasite, Trypanosoma cruzi? To really understand our adversary here, we kind of need to see where it fits in the grand tree of life. Trypanosoma cruzi is a protozoan, so a complex, single-celled organism. It's a eukaryote, which means its cell has a nucleus, just like our cells do. But from there, it goes off into this really strange and fascinating branch. What's especially cool is this class, kinetoplastia. Organisms in this group have this unique structure inside them called a kinetoplast, which is basically the super dense bundle of mitochondrial DNA. And that unique biology is part of what makes it such a tough and resilient parasite to fight. And here's a really crucial detail. It's an endoparasite. So unlike ectoparasites, think lice, that live on the outside of the body, Trypanosoma cruzi makes its home deep inside its host. It invades our cells, our tissues, and it circulates in our blood. This is a huge reason why it can cause such serious long-term problems.
The name itself actually gives us a pretty big clue about its behavior. Trypanosoma comes from the Greek words trypanon, which means borer or drill, and soma for body. So borer body. It was named for this really distinctive, corkscrew-like drilling motion it uses to move around. You can just imagine how effective that is for a parasite trying to get through a host's body.
And what about the second part of its name, cruzi? Well, that has nothing to do with the parasite at all. It's actually a tribute. Carlos Chagas named the species to honor his mentor, Oswaldo Cruz, who was this absolute giant of Brazilian public health. It's just a perfect reminder that behind every single scientific discovery, there's always a human story.
So how does this borer body get from one person to another? Well, this involves a really fascinating and, frankly, a kind of creepy life cycle with a very notorious accomplice. This diagram here is incredible. It shows the parasite's really complex journey. You can see it's a two-host system. If you follow the blue arrows, that's the bug half of the cycle. Inside the insect, the kissing bug, the parasite matures and gets infectious. Then look over at the red arrows for the mammal side of things. When the bug bites a mammal, could be a human, a dog, even a raccoon, the parasite gets into the new host. From there, it invades our cells, multiplies like crazy, and circulates in the bloodstream, just waiting for the next kissing bug to come along and start the whole cycle over again. Let's break down the classic way this gets transmitted, because it's not the bite itself that does it. First, an infected kissing bug, which is usually active at night, comes and takes a blood meal. Now, while it's feeding, it actually poops on the person's skin, releasing the parasites. The bite gets itchy, right? So the person instinctively scratches, and that's the critical moment. They accidentally rub the infected feces right into the bite wound or into their eye or mouth. And from there, the parasites are in, and the lifelong infection begins. So once it's inside the human body, the infection unfolds over decades, usually in two very, very different phases.
The first part is the acute phase, and it lasts for a couple of months. You've got a lot of parasites, actively circulating in the blood. But the symptoms are often just nothing, or maybe mild, flu-like stuff. A classic sign, though it's pretty rare, is what's called Romagne sign. That's a swelling of the eyelid if that's where the parasite happened to get in. After that, the disease goes into the chronic phase. For most people, maybe 60 to 70%, it just stays in this quiet, indeterminate form for the rest of their lives. But for a big chunk of people, up to 40%, the real danger shows up decades later, leading to severe, sometimes fatal, damage to the heart or digestive system. And this incredible delay, this long silence, is exactly why Chagas is so tragically underdiagnosed.
Okay, so you have a disease that's often silent and is now found all over the world. How do doctors even begin to diagnose and treat it? It's a huge challenge.
Well, the strategy for diagnosis really depends on the phase of the infection. In that early acute phase, when parasites are everywhere in the blood, you can sometimes literally see them under a microscope. But in the chronic phase, they're hiding out in tissues, so doctors have to look for indirect clues, our antibodies. Serology is the go-to method, and you usually need at least 2 different positive antibody tests to be sure. Then for specific situations, like if a patient is immunocompromised, doctors use super-sensitive PCR tests that can detect even tiny fragments of the parasite's DNA.
So what does this global spread actually look like on the ground? Well, take a look at this number. This is the estimated range of people living with Chagas disease in the Netherlands. It's a perfect example of how a so-called tropical disease has become a reality in places you'd never expect.
And here's the key thing, it's considered an imported disease there. Why? Because the kissing bugs simply can't survive in the Dutch climate. So the disease doesn't spread locally from bug to person. Instead, the focus shifts completely to non-vector routes, from a mother to her child during pregnancy, or through blood transfusions and organ transplants from a donor who had no idea they were infected.
And trying to treat it in a country like that brings its own set of problems. The main drug, benzonidazole, isn't even registered for general use in places like the Netherlands. Doctors have to jump through hoops, getting special permits to import it for their patients, all while following guidelines from national committees. It just goes to show you the logistical nightmare of managing these rare, imported diseases.
So where do we go from here? What does the future look like in the fight against Trypanosoma cruzi?
The most important thing to know is that there is no vaccine. That makes prevention everything. In areas where the bug lives, that means vector control, improving housing, using insecticides, getting rid of those kissing bugs. But in non-endemic places like Europe and the US, it's all about vigilant screening of blood and organ donations and screening at-risk pregnant women to stop congenital transmission and treat newborns right away if they're infected. On the research front, there's actually a lot of hope. Scientists are working really hard to develop new drugs that are more effective and have fewer nasty side effects. And one of the biggest goals is to create better diagnostic tests. Imagine a simple urine test that can not only tell you if you have an active infection, but could also serve as a test of cure, confirming that the parasite is totally gone after treatment. I mean, that would be an absolute game changer.
We put together all the information for this explainer using a Gemini deep search. For anyone who really wants to dive in deeper, we put a complete list of our sources into a Notebook LM document, and you can find that linked right in the description below.
So, as diseases like Chagas travel the globe, it really brings up a big question. How should we be adapting our public health systems to deal with these neglected diseases that just don't respect borders anymore? We would honestly love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. And hey, if you found this explainer useful, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching.